Hello, I'm here to give you a spoiler-free review of Marvel's Ant-Man. Ant-Man is Marvel's latest offering. It's directed by Peyton Reed, who won't have directed anything you've heard of, and it is written by kind of a bundle of people because it was in production for so long that lots of people chipped in, which means it could potentially be a huge mess. But it isn't. It's freaking awesome. If I had to compare it to any of the other Marvel movies, I'd say it's similar in tone to kind of the first Iron Man. It's quite fun and light-hearted, but there's also a bunch of really amazing action sequences, a little bit of a emotional tug on the old heartstrings as well. So it's kind of got a bit of everything. Actor-wise, it's chock full of people that you'll probably recognise. Paul Rudd plays Scott Lang, aka the new/current Ant-Man. Paul Rudd is obviously typically known for his comedy stuff, whereas this is the perfect combo of like comedy and also just good acting, which I know isn't very descriptive, but he's just really good, particularly in the scenes with the character who is his young daughter. Older Ant-Man, Hank Pym, who is the one you probably have heard of before, is played by Michael Douglas, who again is fantastic. He's perfect as the kind of crotchety, little bit crotchety, one of the first Avengers, that type of person. He's excellent. I usually don't find him particularly likeable, but in this he definitely was. His daughter, Hope Pym, is played by Evangeline Lilly, who is also brilliant. She has a pretty tough, awesome role. Good female character, actually. A few of the other supporting characters are Corey Stoll, who plays Darren Cross. He is your kind of typical bit hammy Marvel bad guy, you know, in the vein of like how Captain America had Red Skull in the first film, basically all the Iron Man villains. He's a little bit typical Marvel villain, but it totally flies. It doesn't hamper the film at all. It's really good fun. There's also Michael Pena, I'm probably saying that wrong, sorry if I am, who plays one of Scott Lang's friends, who is particularly good on the comedy scale. I won't say any more because I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, he's excellent too. Basically everyone involved is brilliant. I was particularly fond of the character of Cassie Lang, which is Scott Lang's daughter, played by a young actress called Abby Ryder Fortson. She was adorable and also brilliant as kind of like a slightly strange little child. I would also recommend seeing this in the cinema because the special effects are brilliant. There's actually a scene towards the beginning where you have a younger Hank Pym and the special effects are just mind-blowing. Like, there's no weird Jeff Bridges in Tron situation here. It is flawless. Like, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's young Michael Douglas. Oh no, wait, he's old. Like, it's that kind of level of amazingness. And also all the shrinky Ant-Man stuff is really well done as well. Like, I would strongly recommend trying to see this in the cinema if you can. Story-wise, it's a pretty solid story, pretty straightforward. It's kind of a little bit origin, a little bit something bigger, which I'm not going to go into, and you get kind of all the origin you need. The pacing is absolutely perfect. Like, there's no bits that drag, there's no bits that are too rushed. It's perfect, which after Age of Ultron, which had some freaking serious pacing issues, it's absolutely lovely to have something that's actually written well. The jokes are also spectacular, which again makes a change from Age of Ultron's terrible forced one-liners, which you can check out the video that I did before with how I feel about Age of Ultron. Ant-Man is up there with the better Marvel movies. I'm hoping that Peyton Reed, who did this one, will stay on for any other Ant-Man movies if they do them. Obviously after this, we don't know where Ant-Man's going to go. Is he going to pop up in the Avengers? Is he going to pop up in other films? Regarding post-credit scenes, there are two. I know after Age of Ultron there was only one, but that's because Joss Whedon is a butt. And this definitely has two. The first one is sort of like near the beginning of the credits, and I'm not going to say what it is. All I'm going to say is hell yeah. The second one is further on in the credits. You have to wait right until the end, and I know you'll probably be busting for a pee, but honestly it is so worth staying for. I feel like my brain is going to explode just from witnessing it. So yeah, the film in general was brilliant. Please go and see it at the cinema. It is awesome. I promise you it's a great amount of fun as well, and it seems like the kind of thing that could probably be a family film or a couple's film or a friend's film, anything. So I strongly recommend going to see it. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the post-credit scenes, so I'm going to hit you with spoilers. So So if you don't want it spoiled for you, switch off now. Make sure you check the links in the description box below if you are done. If you want to hang around to hear more about what the scenes are after the credits, then here we go. First post-credits scene is Evangeline Lilly, Hope Pym, looking at the freaking Wasp outfit. And it's amazing. It's like gold and dark blue and red and like dark red. So it's awesome. It's not just like a weird little dress thing. It's like a whole thing with a helmet, and it's gonna look amazing, and she's gonna look amazing in it. And yes, Wasp, I'm so in. Yes. The second post-credit scene, which is the one right at the end, was the one that almost gave me a heart attack. I'm sure a few of you have already heard what it is, so I'll try and get through that quickly. So, we have Sam Wilson, Falcon, Steve Rogers, Captain America. They're in kind of like a dingy looking place, maybe a basement, somewhere like that. It's just kind of grey and brown. They have found, sorry if I cry, he's there, Bucky, aka the Winter Soldier. So they have him there. Bucky is kind of like on the ground hunched over with his arm up in something, and this scene is like a couple of seconds. It's not long at all, so you can't really see what the situation is. I'll go into what I think about that in a minute. Steve and Sam look at him almost like Steve looks very sad at first and then very serious, and they are sort of talking amongst themselves. Bucky looks very upset, not crazy and aggressive, but just sad. And Sebastian Stan's like eye acting is friggin' amazing again. But anyway, so, and there's a brief exchange where Sam says, should we call Tony Stark? Steve says no. There's a reference to something that happened a week ago, which we don't know what that is. Is that something Ultron? Is that something Bucky? Whatever. So there's obviously something there where they don't want to contact Tony in regards to Bucky. And that's kind of it. It's very short and it's very amazing. Now, I am going to talk to you about what I think that means, because as an avid Bucky and Cap fan, I have overanalyzed this 3-second scene to the absolute max, and I have a theory. My theory is that Bucky's arm is trapped in some kind of, it looks kind of like a vice or some sort of machinery. I think he's actually trying to take his arm off. Now, this could either be because he is just distressed, so he's become coherent again. He kind of knows what's going on, like we saw at the end of Winter Soldier, and he suddenly realised that this weapon is attached to him, which would freak anyone out. So it could be that he's kind of freaked out by it, he wants to remove it. The other option is that there's something inside it that Hydra would have placed in there to stop other people using him. He was their weapon. That could either be an explosive that could harm him or other people. It could be something that injects him and either knocks him out or kills him. It could be something that injects him that's triggered by a kill word, which is something that has been mentioned in conjunction with Civil War, that Bucky would have a kill word that wasn't clear whether it would knock him out or kill him. So it could be that. Any manner of things could be in that arm, considering how advanced it looks as well. So it could be either of those. Either he just thinks, oh, what is this? I want to take it off. Or he could be aware of there's something in it. There's also the possibility that there's a tracker in it and that Hydra have been following him. Could be anything. Either way, I think he's trying to take it off. Now, obviously, Steve and Sam wouldn't have agreed to him smashing his arm in a machine. So I think the case is that Bucky, with his kind of confusion, is having little blips of coherence and then not coherence, doesn't know where he is, he's confused, oh yes he does know where he is, that sort of thing. He's kind of messed up. So I think Bucky probably has a habit of wandering off. Now in the Winter Soldier comic book, he wanders off a couple of times whilst on Hydra missions when he's still with them. He wanders back to Brooklyn because he has like a vague memory of that. So I think that could be possibly the same thing. Obviously now he's probably in better hands. I think maybe Steve has had him for a little while and is probably trying to rehabilitate him kind of in secret, because that would cause a number of problems with everyone else. I'll go into that shortly. So I think Bucky probably has a habit of sort of just wandering off and doing his own thing out of confusion, whatever. I think he's wandered off at this point to take his arm off, and that Sam and Steve have come across him, because the way they come into the scene, it's not like, oh my god, it's Bucky, like it would be if they first found him. It's more just like, oh, here he is. like, oh no, we've come across him, like we found him, he's wandered off. It's that kind of vibe to me anyway. So I think they've just found him, they've gone, oh no, we found him, and he's got his arm and he's trying to take it off, which would explain the kind of sad face that Steve Rogers gives him right at the beginning of the scene. I think that's the case. I think possibly they do or don't know about the situation with the arm. They could know that there's a kill switch or an explosive or a tracker, or they could just assume that there would be. Bearing in mind Steve was alive during the war, there's a whole thing there about like the other side not wanting the other side to get their technology and their weapons and blah 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 blah. He would have an idea that there's probably something in Bucky, in the arm, that's going to hurt him so that people that aren't Hydra could get hold of him, right? So I'm thinking they might know, or at least have an idea that something's going on inside the arm. Whether Bucky does or doesn't know is irrelevant. I think Steve knows for sure, maybe Sam. What makes me think this is that at the end of the scene, Sam offers to basically get Ant-Man to come and help them. Now, they make a big deal in Ant-Man with him shrinking super small and going in and breaking things. Bearing in mind, they haven't got Tony Stark with them. Their other scientist, which is Bruce, has seemingly disappeared at the end of Age of Ultron, so they have no scientist. Scott Lang certainly isn't a scientist, but he can shrink tiny, potentially go in the arm and remove whatever it is that could potentially harm Bucky or others. That is where I think that Scott Lang will come into it. I think that's why Sam is offering to get him. In the movie, you see Scott fight Sam and it's a very shrinky small battle, so he's well aware of his powers. And I think that's the sort of thing Sam would have thought, oh, I know a guy that can shrink really small, he could get in the arm and take the thing out without all this trauma that Bucky's causing himself with the machine. That's my idea. Maybe I've read way too much into like a 3-second scene, but I really, really dig Bucky Barnes and Steve Rogers, so I'm like the #1 reader into tiny little scenarios. I could be totally wrong, I could be totally right. If I'm totally right, you all owe me 100 high fives. If I'm totally wrong, they should have got me to write this movie. That's what I think is going on. I also think that Bucky is maybe going to be an integral part of Civil War. If you've seen Winter Soldier, you'll know that it's heavily implied, pretty much laid out, that Bucky killed Howard Stark, which is Tony's father. It comes up on the computer in the Zola scene. So I think that could potentially be, I don't think it will be the main thing, but I think it will just be another kick to Tony Stark. And Tony is the sort of person that if he found this out, he would want Bucky to answer for his crimes, whereas Steve would not want Bucky to answer for his crimes. He would say, you know, he was brainwashed, it wasn't his fault. I think that could be a part of it. That would also explain why they don't want to bring Tony in to the situation. A few people have suggested to me that Bucky is in a hostage situation and Steve is keeping him somewhere. I absolutely don't agree with that. Steve Rogers would definitely not keep Bucky chained or locked up or restricted in any way if he could help it. Obviously at the end of Winter Soldier he gets a file with all of Bucky's Hydra stuff in. Knowing what's happened to him, no way Steve Rogers would keep him in any situation that's going to harm him. That's also why I don't think they've been fighting in the scene, because Steve makes a huge deal at the end of Winter Soldier about not even hitting Bucky, so I refuse to accept that they've been fighting in this scene either. I think it's the case, like I said, that they found him trying to take his arm off. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please let me know what you thought of Ant-Man, what you thought of the post-credit scenes, all that jazz in the comments below. I will speak to you guys soon. Please check out all the links. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/DarksideComicsUK, Twitter at DarksideComicUK, Instagram DarksideComicsUK, Tumblr DarksideComicsUK, website www.darksidecomics.co.uk. You can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Hollow, and on Facebook at facebook.com/ThatHollyRingcell. I will put all the links below. It's been fun talking to you guys, and I will see you on the dark side.